Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat?
We've done a lot of draft here, obviously, this week, recapping a massive haul. The one thing we haven't really done is focus in on the NFC South and how the Buccaneers, how the Falcons, how the Panthers did with their drafts. Because, look, the NFC South, if we're being quite honest, is an atrocious division in the NFL. It's really bad. It is up for grabs. Like, you could have whoever you think is the favorite, and many think that's the Atlanta Falcons. They, went ahead with Kirk Cousins, the veteran quarterback. They look a lot like the Saints did last year when they signed Derek Carr, and everyone assumed the Saints would be the favorite to win the NFC South. Or the Saints should be the winner of the NFC South. They were the betting favorite, and, well, you know how that turned out. Now, look, you can say the Falcons are probably maybe in a little bit better position, but I can also look at that and be like, man, they did not address a lot of holes on their defense. Instead, they took a quarterback with the 8th overall pick. And I don't really know if it's just that cut and dry that, the Falcons signed Kirk Cousins, they're going to win the NFC South. Because, again, you saw it with the Saints last year with Derek Carr, and it wasn't. So we had kind of planned on doing this earlier in the week. Never got to it, so I thought we could do it right now. Kind of go through and grade the drafts for the rest of the NFC South. Let's start with your betting favorites, the Atlanta Falcons, because they're also probably the most intriguing. Taking Michael Penix Jr. at number 8 overall after committing $180 million, $100 million of that guaranteed to Kirk Cousins. So, look, my take on that is not any different than anyone else's, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. I was as floored by the pick as all of you. I also laughed very hard, like all of you, when they made that pick. And I think for the next 30 minutes solid on our draft show from Don Juan, we just made fun of the Atlanta Falcons. Yes, it was very confusing. You took a guy who'd been oft injured, obviously throughout his career in college. He's 24 years old. You just paid Kirk Cousins. It didn't make a lot of sense when you had all those needs on defense. Now, when you go to the round 2 selection, I like it a lot. If y'all listen to AFR, you know that. Anytime we talked about defensive tackle in this draft and Matt would ask for input, I would always bring up Ruke Orororo from Clemson. And not just because his name is incredibly fun to say, but his name is incredibly fun to say. You look at Clemson, when they went on their run, when Dabo had that thing humming, they just consistently put defensive linemen into the league. Look at Brian Brzee with the New Orleans Saints. That worked out pretty well in his rookie year. So I look at Orororo and I say, man, that's a really good guy to have in run defense. It's one reason I liked him and wanted the Saints to potentially move up and draft him at some point. I like that pick actually an awful lot for the Falcons. Then you go to round 3, you see Braylon Trice, outside linebacker from Washington. Like, they didn't address the defense in the first round, but they did really. The next 4 picks were all defenders. Trice from Washington, a defense that helped, lead the Huskies to a national championship game appearance. He graded out per Next Gen Stats, like NFL Next Gen Stats, as the top linebacker at the combine. Now, he didn't run the 40. You would like him, a 4.72. He's a little slow, especially for an NFL linebacker, but everything else graded out top of the linebacker class at the combine with, their little combine score that they get, production, athleticism, combine it. So, I don't know how you look at that and don't say, okay, there's some potential there. Again, slow, but there's some potential there. After that, there's really one other pick that I liked for the Falcons, and it was Jace McClellan, the running back out of Alabama. I think he's a very underrated prospect. Now, obviously, look, they have Bijan Robinson. Like, he's not going to go in there and start, but you get a guy like Jace McClellan in the 6th round who made plays at Alabama, very athletic guy. I can look at that and go, that's a good flyer to take on somebody. That's good value. If I'm going to grade the Atlanta Falcons draft, the Penix pick being what it is, I like the Orororo pick. I like the Braylon Trice pick. They got a defensive lineman from Oregon in the 4th round. See if he blossoms into anything, and another linebacker out of Notre Dame in the 5th round. But, man, once you really get through those 3 rounds, you're kind of taking flyers on guys. So looking at that, I will go D+ for for the Atlanta Falcons. I know a lot of people have been really harsh on them, but I mean, the Penix pick is one reason why. And it just is, it is very confusing. Let's go to the Carolina Panthers. Interesting for the Panthers. I loved their first 2 picks a lot. Xavier Legette in the first round. Man, a lot of people had him early second round. The Panthers obviously liked him, traded back up to get there and take him. He's interesting. I mean, he's a blazer, man. Just incredible speed, a sub 4.40. And that was at over 220 pounds. He weighed in at the combine. Like, that's freakish, y'all. That is a big-bodied guy who can run. And receiver was a big problem for the Carolina Panthers last year. I mean, DJ Chark had a rough season. That was tough to see here. Adam Thielen was good, but he paced them. He wasn't great. He's clearly not the same Adam Thielen that he was. He went right over 1,000 yards, and then Chark was next at just over 500. Terrace Marshall has kind of struggled to come along there as well with the Falcons, and even Jonathan Mingo, I don't think really blossomed in what they thought they could have there. So they had to address wide receiver, and they did. And I love the pick of Xavier Legette. The interesting thing is he's got all the athletic ability, all the talent. The production lacked in college until his last year at South Carolina. Has he kind of figured it out and what he can, the step he can take going forward. I loved their second round pick of Jonathan Brooks. I loved this pick. You talk about an underrated running back. Big fan. Now, look, he's coming off the ACL. I get it, but he's a guy who can run between the tackles. He's a guy who can also catch the ball out of the backfield. Will he be ready coming off the ACL for the start of training camp? I don't know. It's not maybe a pick that you might see in the immediacy, but I think down the line, you're going to see Jonathan Brooks actually do good things in a Carolina Panthers uniform, which is not great for the New Orleans Saints. But I liked that pick an awful lot. Their fourth round pick, like when I look at the Panthers draft, I see a lot of value. It's not maybe, like we said with Brooks, immediate, but you got guys here, man, that could end up being really good players. Maybe not in Carolina, but somewhere down the road, they're going to stick in the NFL, and you could probably be like, man, that was actually a really good pick back in 2024. Jatavion Sanders is a tight end out of Texas that they took in round 4. And outside of Brock Bowers, he was largely looked at as one of the top, if not tight end 2, tight end 3 in the draft. So to get him in the 4th round seems like a great value pick. Like, they went and got Bryce Young weapons, whether it's Xavier Legette or Jatavion Sanders, a great pass-catching tight end, went over 600 yards the last 2 seasons at Texas. That's a guy that can come in and be a weapon. And in the 4th round, I think that's great value. The interesting thing is the biggest need was probably cornerback, and they did not address that until round 5 with Shaw Smith-Wade. J.C. Horn has obviously been oft injured for the Carolina Panthers. So you need something there. Dante Jackson, of course, you know what happens with him. So you go with Shaw Wade Smith. Surprising that they went so heavy offensive. And when they did take a defensive guy early, it was a linebacker out of Kentucky. But we'll see how that goes. That's kind of the one black eye and really kind of drags the grade that I'll give them down for me a little bit. And then the other value pick I loved was Jaden Crumedy, the defensive tackle out of Mississippi State. Like, that's a name you know from the SEC. He had plenty of success. So to get a guy like that in round 6, okay. Like, that's what I mean. Like, couldn't you see, and maybe it's not for the Panthers, but couldn't you see 4 or 5 years, 6 years down the road, Jaden Crumedy just still doing it in the NFL and going, man, that's a really good draft pick. You hope it's not for the Panthers. It probably could be somebody, but he's got staying power. In the 7th round, they took a linebacker from Michigan. Yeah, take anybody from the Michigan defense. They were awesome. I will go B- for the Carolina Panthers. I like the value. Maybe I'm overvaluing the value, but I liked the value. I think they actually did some good things. And then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who had a sneaky good draft. Graham Barton, the center out of Duke with round 1. He's going to project as a center in the NFL. He played some left tackle out of necessity for the Blue Devils in his final year. But look, Ryan Jensen, it's been tough for him injury-wise. The Buccaneers needed to address offensive line. They needed to address the center position, and they did there. Graham Barton feels like a great pick. Getting Chris Braswell in round 2 out of Alabama is awesome. Like, y'all, Braswell, I know everyone looks at Will Anderson. Everybody looks at Dallas Turner. Braswell was incredibly consistent behind those 2 guys for 3 years. And then he led the SEC with 56 pressures. Like, opposite Dallas Turner, you can say, okay, everyone's committing to Turner and it's going to free him up a little bit more. And sure, but for him to be able to execute that, and then he had a great week at the Senior Bowl as well. I think that's a great pick in the second round there. And then how about this? Jalen McMillan in round 3. He dealt with some injury in 2023 at Washington, but in 2022, he was the leading receiver on that team, not Rome Odunze. You're going to get a guy like that in round 3. That's the definition of a value pick. So as much as it pains me to admit it, that's a great pick for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I think, provided he's healthy and ready to go and all of that. But it could be kind of similar to what we talked about with the Panthers. Maybe it's not immediate, but down the line, you're like, oh, man, yeah, the Jalen McMillan pick. And then they take Tyke Smith also in the third round out of Georgia as safety. Kind of the same thing with Michigan's defense. Georgia's defense is awesome. If you're going to take a defensive player out of Georgia, you're going to be hard-pressed to find anyone who's against that. Kirby Smart just has that thing humming at a level that's, kind of unheard of defensively. Well, not unheard of. He did the same thing in Alabama. But you get what I mean in that. Sure, all for it. And then, you go down the list and you get into kind of them, taking some flyers. But the Barton pick addressed a huge need. I think Braswell is going to be really good off the edge. And I think McMillan could be an absolute steal at the wide receiver position for Tampa Bay. I will go B+ for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here in the draft. And you know what? We kind of started this segment talking about odds in the NFC South and who could be the winner. And when you looked at last year, it was the Saints. The Saints are going to win the NFC South. They got the veteran quarterback they need in Derek Carr. They still have a good defense. Well, you know what happened. And who was the team that snuck up and did it? The Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Baker Mayfield at quarterback. I think the Buccaneers got better in the draft. Everyone's looking at the Falcons. Don't be surprised if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Baker Mayfield sneak up and win the division yet again. I like the picks that they made. I hope they don't. I hope the Saints win the NFC South. But I'm not very optimistic about that either.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.